Joining us are lawyer Marichu Lambino, assistant professor at the UP College of Mass Communication, Kabataan Party List Representative Mong Palatino, and Gang Badoy, executive director of the NGO Rock Ed Philippines. We also invited former DSWD Secretary Esperanza Cabral, blogger Ella, and the National Bureau of Investigation, but they declined. Welcome to ANC. Marichu, let me throw the first question at you. Why is this case important?
Well, it's kind of experimental because there are questions that have to be hurdled. First is the venue, because under the libel law, the venue has to be the province or the city where if the offended party is a public official residing or holding office in Manila, the venue should be the city or the province where the material is first published. In this case, it's a blog. Where is a blog first published? It's in cyberspace. So I don't know how our courts will acquire jurisdiction over this blog because it's not existent in a three-dimensional world. It's out there in cyberspace. So that's one hurdle they have to make. And then the second would be identifying or being able to sue what would be an anonymous blogger in this case. So how do you establish the identity of that blogger?
Correct.
And also there are no Supreme Court decisions on the internet in libel. So this is very experimental. And I'd be interested in how the NBI and the prosecution will be able to handle this.
Fantastic. We'll go back to the legal issues and the kinds of problems this raises. Gang, you know something about this. You volunteered at the DSWD after it happened. Tell us a little bit more.
Just to make it clear, I actually volunteered after I read the blog, because prior to reading the blog, regular people like me would definitely have nothing to do with government motions because they're either too slow for us or too much red tape. But when I read the blog, like the millions who read it, we were on a high. Our senses were on fifth year. Ondoy had just happened. We had witnessed so much helplessness, and that's right. And in the feeling of helpless, when your senses are like on fifth year like that, then naturally your reactions are also as magnified.
So when you saw it though, when you volunteered at the SWD, did Ella's complaints have any basis?
Well, actually, for the most part, the explanations were this is not the same warehouse that Ella complained about when we showed up in the warehouses. But my point is, I think when the blog was written, when the blog was posted, we have to understand the entire country, if not even, by nation, I mean even the Philippines overseas, we were on such a high note of reaction. And when you're so helpless in the face of force majeure like that, it's our default really to blame those who claim to be in charge. And so the reaction is just as magnified.
Right. Well, Mong, you actually also came to the defense of Ella, and that she has the right to stay anonymous despite this. Why?
I'm also a blogger, by the way. And
right.
I think Ella has to defend her right to be anonymous. And she was just voicing out what she witnessed inside the warehouse of the SWD. And this libel case is unprecedented because a government official is suing an anonymous blogger, and this is an election period. Are we sending a message to bloggers not to be overly critical to government officials?
But the question is, where do we draw the line between a person's right to their
Opinion.
Public persona and credibility? Because in this case, you're also hitting a whole agency. Well, Ella was. Where's the line in your mind as a blogger? Where would you draw the line?
Well, the SWD has the chance to reply to Ella's accusations, and the SWD secretary's answer was posted in the blog of Ella.
Yes.
And I think her credibility remained intact because she was appointed as DOH secretary.
I hope this is not veering the conversation too far, but there's also to consider the smarts of the reader.
Right.
I mean, I read it. It didn't claim to be an institution. It didn't claim to be a source of truth, It was an individual's opinion who saw photos, who actually was there. So therefore, me as a reader, I know that this is a very riled up person, just as I was. And then you can choose your reactions from there. I mean, Ella has every right, whether she's anonymous or not, has every right to express her opinion. And she never claimed to be an official institution or an official organization that officially investigated this, and this is fact. In fact, several of the most damaging lines on the blog, I revisited it last night, several of the more damaging lines were actually posed as questions. And I understand questions are rarely, if never, considered libelous.
So why?
Yung mga, who are these special victims? And they're mostly in questions, and I don't understand why. I don't understand why the DSWD.
And the controversial remarks were written by other people in the comments
I agree,
section.
I
456 comments.
In my blog,
last
I have
night.
about 380 comments.
Wow.
Just
This captured
posting.
people's attentions online, and it spilled over into the real world, obviously, right?
And I always go back to it captured us because it was such a terrible time, an unprecedented storm, and senses were heightened.
Right. Marichu, where would you draw the line?
The complaint is based on what the DSWD secretary said, was that Ella was not supposed to have been, wasn't there, according to them. But since this is an anonymous blogger, how can they establish that she wasn't there when they have not established her identity? That is the trouble with establishing factual allegations if you're suing someone who's anonymous.
Is there an advertent admission that they probably know who she is?
Well, it was filed against a certain Jade Ceres Dolor, which they got from the author of a book which was supposed to have been authored by the blogger Ella. So Ella is supposedly the name of a character of a book that the blogger wrote.
Right.
Ella
So-
Amasus. So
so-
the name of the author is supposed to be Jade Ceres Dolor, and then the NBI investigated. Ella has been using Philippine News, an online newspaper, and they found out that the editor of Philippine News is also surnamed Dolor, Betting Dolor. So they were able to establish that they must be related to each other. And then according to the NBI, they checked the records of the social work, the SWD, and they had a volunteer, a male person who was also surnamed Dolor. So they were able to connect all of these and try to establish the identity. But I don't know if this is sufficient evidence
Correct.
to establish who she is. So how can you establish certain factual allegations in your complaint if you don't know who this person is? How can you say she wasn't there if you fail to establish who she is?
That's also another question, the entry of the NBI in the picture. Because
Why did they come in?
yes, as bloggers,
Yes.
we are used to government officials replying to our articles, but here comes the NBI asking Ella to come to their office for some polygraph tests. So this sends a chilling message to bloggers and other anonymous writers in the cyberspace.